Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's Digital Doorstep. Very shortly we will be joined by Íde Cussen, who is campaigning in the local elections and will be looking for your number one vote on May the 24th. If you weren't with us last night and if you don't know me, my name is Trasa. I am the admin, I'm one of the two admins for the Savage Politics Facebook group. So the reason we decided to set up this event was because there is no hustings arranged in Celbridge for these local elections. And we have a lot of candidates and obviously a huge population, and people wanted to get a little bit of a feel for the candidates, and also for anybody who didn't get to meet their candidates on the doorsteps, on the real doorsteps, to have a chance to ask some questions and to get to know the candidates that little bit better. So as we speak, Íde is waiting in a virtual green room of sorts. She's kind of digitally backstage, and I'm going to bring her along in just one moment. Yeah, so just a small reminder, as was the case last night, while Íde and I are connecting, she will join me split screen in just a moment, but while we are connecting, we may lose audio for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, so just bear with us and we will be right back. Here we go.
Hiya.
Fantastic. Hi, Íde, how are you?
I'm good. I've no idea where to be looking on this screen, so
Don't
you'll
worry,
have to forgive me.
don't worry. I was doing that last night as well, looking straight into the camera and then looking at you when I was asking you questions. So of course I have it. You can look anywhere you like. Let me worry about all that stuff.
I
Um,
fidget, so I will,
Good. Thanks for joining us. The audio is fine. The video is fine. By the way, just so you know, we're connected. We're connected. Okay. Something I learned last night actually is I need to make sure I don't speak over you or do that as little as possible, because there can be a little bit of garbled sound if I do that. So feel free to give me a look. Let me know to stop.
And I just see one real problem. My two dogs are now wondering who I'm talking to, so they may whinge in the background. And if you see me distracted,
Don't be
yeah,
worrying.
my
Don't be
mom is
worrying.
trying to mind them in the other room, but it's not working out.
Well, you're in good company anyway. Don't be worrying. Look,
That's
let's get
fine,
straight
yeah.
to it. We'll
Okay.
jump straight in. Okay, so for everybody at home, thanks a million for joining us. We have a growing audience here at the moment, Íde, live. A quick reminder, recap of the format of this interview and all interviews that we'll be running this week. First, I will ask Íde to introduce herself to you, tell us a little bit about her platform, and give a little bit of information about herself. And then I will ask some questions. The first question is the same question I will be asking all candidates as the first question. And the other three are different for each candidate. They're a little bit tailored. The candidates have seen the interview questions in advance of tonight's broadcast. The purpose of this interview is to let you hear their answers and invite you to engage in the comments. It's really important. You have one shot now to ask Íde anything you like in the comments down below this video. And Íde and all of the other candidates have agreed to respond to as many of the questions as they can on local issues just below this video after it's shared out, which will happen right after we finish being live. So, you didn't come here to listen to me. Íde Cussen, you're very, very welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Tressa, and thank you for doing this. I suppose I'll start by saying anyone who doesn't know me, I've lived in Selbridge for 34 years or so. I have two adult children who live here also. Shannon is 25. She's a dressage rider over in England now. And my son is 22, Philip. He's a PhD student of physics in Maynooth University. My mom has lived here for over 30 years as well, and I'm currently her carer. So before I became involved in politics, I worked in the DIT. I worked there for over 30 years in admin work. I would have commuted in and out to Dublin from Selbridge on the bus every day to do that. And I took a career break when I was elected in order to apply myself fully to the councillor role. As a councillor, I've worked with all groups, any individuals, groups, anybody who's contacted me at all. And bearing in mind that your local councillors are also part of full council. So there are 40 councillors on full council, and we get together on a monthly basis for our statutory meetings there as well. At our first council meetings, I would have probably been a bit contentious in that I looked to reduce the chairs salary. There is a salary of 12,000 per year for the Cathaoirleach, and I looked to have it reduced to 6,000, which I thought was fair enough if it needed to be there at all, but I wasn't supported locally. I suppose the next contentious issue I had was that I had issue with us paying for a gold chain of office or any chain of office out of the local property tax. And that caused quite a fracas locally, and then it went to budget committee, went to full council, and eventually it wasn't permitted. There was to be no blame out of yours or mine or anybody's local property tax. So I have a proven track record, I believe, in looking to make Selbridge a safer place for everyone to live. Safer, I would have focused mainly on the Gardaí, or the lack of Gardaí and Garda resources, and the harm from alcohol in our community. Making Selbridge places accessible for all. I would have focused big time on our age-friendly town, making Selbridge an age-friendly town, working to do that, working with an access group. I'm a member of the local access group as well, identifying problems, places, trip hazards, places where people can't cross on our main street, all those kind of things as a member of an access group, and working to change those things. I'm also very proactive where carers are in our community as well, and I would have focused a considerable amount of time, somewhat unsuccessfully at times, but the campaign is still on. You will recall when the pay by weight charges were coming in, the carers would have been hugely impacted by that, because obviously a lot of items in the home for carers aren't recyclable. And I took that to our council meetings, I took it to full council, I took it to the strategic policy committee, I took it to the minister, and actually we nearly had an agreement on it that there would be a small stipend paid to carers in the home to offset some of the charges. But then we've had the hospital overrun in the meantime, and that has been put on hold along with many other things, but we'll still keep that campaign up. I suppose some of the other items that I would have keep focused on is transport. Bus Connects, obviously hugely involved in that, and then locally, as Bus Connects is not properly developing yet, I expect the second draft of that out later in the summer, and when we have that, we hope to see some positive measures on some of the negative things, like all our buses going through Leixlip, perhaps they might disappear off of it. We're led to believe they will, and that we will see a better proposal for the Selbridge area. And in the meantime, I've worked with the NTA and with their local links for South Dublin and Kildare. I've worked extensively with them to produce a map for a new route for Selbridge to Naas. It's the first time it has been proposed that it would go through our clock, so it goes out the Naas Road as well, serving a lot of small rural places in between, but the two big towns each end, Selbridge and Naas. It has been costed, it has gone to the NTA, and it has very positive feedback from everyone concerned. And also then, as we were on the local link route at that stage, we have rural parts of Kildare, including our Selbridge Road, including our clock. And they currently just have a Thursday service where the bus is a kind of a bucket bus. It goes from our clock to Maynooth, and I have an agreement, and it will roll out in the next couple of weeks, where that route will extend. It'll still be Thursday, just one day, but one trip, but it'll go Straffan, Arclough, Selbridge, Leixlip, Maynooth and Liffey Valley. So that's an improvement as well. So they're just, I suppose, a snapshot of some of the things I have been doing, and that's a bit about me.
Okay, thanks for that. You've clearly been busy. Okay, so we'll move on to the common question. Same question that I asked Brendan last night. It often appeared that the municipal, and you've mentioned yourself, in fact, you know, the odd little bit of contention here and there, one or two issues. I can tell you that I suppose people feel it when there is that little bit of contention. So it did often appear that the municipal district councillors were at cross purposes with one another, and that Kildare County Council places many obstacles in the way of securing infrastructural and other funding for Selbridge. Is this a fair assessment in your view? What approaches will you take to fostering a more cohesive working environment amongst councillors and with Kildare County Council? And what will you do to maximise the share of funding that gets directed to Selbridge?
Very small question, isn't it? Yeah, I looked at that in a few parts, and I broke it down to, do you think we get on with each other? And part of our function is to actually work as a municipal district. And I think that came as a new concept here in Selbridge, perhaps, because the best way forward is when your councillors work together for the better good of Selbridge. It's a no-brainer. That's what you need to do. And I think people will acknowledge that I have managed to do that fairly well. I have worked extensively with some of our local councillors in particular, and I know we were Selbridge leak slip before, so that would be confusing to some people going forward, because we had 7 councillors, 4 were Selbridge, 3 were leak slip. From this point forward, it'll be separate areas, and you'll be elected specifically to your area. But I would have the ability to work with councillors, whoever they are, from whatever parties, for the better good, and I have proven that. In fact, I became kind of a few jabs at me more and jokes at me for being somebody who worked more with other councillors, but I believe that's the way forward. Part of the question, I have a long question there. Part of the question is in relation to the officials, and did it hinder anything, or I think is that the question.
Yeah.
But I think, in fact, part of our problem as councillors is that we were sometimes undermined by virtue of how information was given to us. That could be that it wasn't given to us in a timely fashion or a timely manner, or at the same time as perhaps Churchidala might have got news before something that was very relevant to your municipal district came to the councillors at all. So those kind of things we've managed to iron out a bit more, because we would have put forward motions and discussed how to improve that, and the council officials agreed that anything that was relative to our area that they would discuss with us at the same time as any of our other elected reps. So that's positive. And there again, we find ourselves in council where you can get a different brief from somebody who's an engineer and somebody else who's a director of a service. So, and specifically that would come up in relation to infrastructural projects and the timeframes for them. And I think you have a question different to that later on, so we don't harbour on that. But if we ask a question, be it through the municipal at a motion or a question at our monthly meetings, we may get one answer if it came from the director of roads and transport, and then we may get a different one from a senior engineer 10 minutes later. And it really shouldn't be up to us to have to decipher where the truth lies on those things. So I think the best way forward is for people to talk and to work together, and I'm perfectly capable of doing that.
Fantastic, thanks. It's a thorough answer, and you have addressed, I suppose, the underlying sense. I suppose if I'm hearing you correctly, a lot of the confusion and I suppose the miscommunication can come from source as opposed to from the council. If I've understood you well, it can come from different places. Moving on, then, let's talk about crime. You have been involved in raising the issue of Garda resources through several initiatives. The rate of burglaries is set to fall now as per seasonal patterns, but we are at risk of being unprepared for the next pickup in crime if the pressure is not maintained. The concern about drugs and youth antisocial behaviour is ever present. On crime, Superintendent Wall mentioned at a recent meeting that he felt that technology such as cameras and drones was perhaps not the most efficient use of Garda resources because, for example, cameras would have to be monitored. Do you agree with Superintendent Wall regarding cameras, and what is your plan to ensure the continued improvement in Garda resourcing? Are our current youth and social facilities adequately resourced to reduce antisocial behaviour at the root cause?
Good short question there, Tressa. Yeah. Yeah, you have to break it up. I'm kind of trying to listen as you're saying this as well. But first of all, are our youth services and facilities adequate? No, they're not. Blatantly, no, they are not there. They weren't provided over years of extensive housing developments in Selbridge. There was a failure to provide anything but houses. And we are living with the failings of successive governments over the years of leaving Selbridge starved of anything other than private housing. And that's where we're at. But are there sufficient facilities? Absolutely not. What do our young people want? They need to be asked more. And we do have Corlin and Ogan, we do have a youth cafe, and we do have engagement with young people. But we definitely need the younger voices, and we need them to tell us more what they need, but then we need to be able to deliver. And I think the health check of our public realm, which includes your social infrastructure, your amenities, it's not just your shops and your businesses and your buses and your paths and your primary care centres or that, it's also social infrastructure. And that is what we are lacking here in Selbridge. But not to labour on that, when you asked me that, when I see that question, I immediately became defensive of myself, because I said, it's not as if, and I don't mean against you, what I mean is our young people are not the sole reason why we have
no, you're quite right.
behaviour.
You're quite right.
Yeah. And I read it that way it was my take on the question, I suppose, because we have really fine young people here in Selbridge, and I know a huge amount of them, as we all do, and I don't believe that that's the reason why we have such crime in Selbridge, as opposed to some pockets of antisocial behaviour. And when I said earlier about Safe for Selbridge, I spoke about the harm from alcohol in our community, and a lot of the problems that came up at our meetings, at our public Garda Forum meetings, were somewhat related to alcohol and its misuse, perhaps amongst younger people in our communities. And there are ways of dealing with that. But what we actually have in Selbridge more currently are, and the Gardaí have said it to us, including the superintendent, we have like tourist criminals as well, where they come to Selbridge to do their business and they leave again. So what we need to do is we have to get our Garda station open full time. We have to have visibility, it's positivity, and it also deters criminals from coming to Selbridge to do what they do. So the question, I think the other part, I'm trying to remember all the question was about the cameras and drones and things.
Yes, and it specifically leads into your point about your point about the gangs that come through for the burglaries. And I've heard Superintendent Wall mention that as well. It's not somebody leaving their house on one side of Selbridge and breaking into a house on the other side of Selbridge. It's these people that pass through and they're gone. Hence cameras and drones. It's come up a few times, and so I'm just curious to know what's your take on it, given that you've been close to the subject.
Yeah, and I think you felt that the superintendent wasn't as keen on it, and I am a member of the Joint Policing Committee, and as part of that, I also was put onto the subcommittee, we've all these committees, subcommittee of the Joint Policing Committee on CCTV, and as part of that, it took almost 2 years of those meetings and committees to develop a policy. But I do believe it's a watertight policy on the protocol for CCTV in our communities, because unfortunately what happened as a good thing was the minister put out money there for community groups to apply for CCTV, which is very positive, except there were very few schemes that could get off the ground here, not just in Kildare but anywhere in Ireland, because we didn't actually have protocols that were watertight in place for things like data protection and
very important,
or all that kind of stuff, or misuse of data or anything. So we have, I believe, a policy now that will be watertight, and the protocol has taken that length of time, but it is almost ready, and I think it will go out in the next month or so. Their county council will be the data controller. And because as any community group who may look to set up a CCTV scheme within their community at all, you do have to have the funding, you have to prove you're able to maintain it for the next 5 years as well. And then you have to meet the protocol of your local Joint Policing Committee, and Kildare County Council will be the data controller, and the JPC, that's the Joint Policing Committee, will have to approve of every community CCTV. I think they have huge merit.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I just got distracted with a comment that's come up. I'm shooting down notes. Thanks, Damien James Murray. You caught me on the hop there a little bit.
I don't see any comments myself, and I hope I don't, because they distract me as well. But I don't see any coming up.
They can be distracting, but they're also fantastic as well. So I'm trying to get them down so we can hit them.
Me, you
know. So far we have, I'm just going to scroll down. Let me have a quick look. So we have questions on, for example, from Damien James Murray, protesting further housing that's not social or affordable until we have better roads and public transport. We had one in from Michael, can we stop building until there's a second bridge? We had one from Fidelma that, quite right, Fidelma, the 67 is a sham. I think that's pretty unanimous in Selbridge at the moment, that it's a poor service. And we have, I'm sticking with local issues, guys. Are we ever likely to see the Garda station open and staffed on a full-time basis? So you can see the sense that's coming in from people. In some of last night's comments, for example, we had a question about SNA teachers, and I personally had a question, given that I was hosting this event on, again, children with special needs. So the range of issues that are there as a menu to deal with for our set of councillors is pretty extensive. So they're all there in the comments. I'll let you get to it afterwards, and we'll move on to question 2. So question 2 is on the environment. The environment and the protection of our natural resources has been a focus for you, specifically to reduce the amount of chemicals used on our grass banks and public grounds. A motion was passed at KCC to reduce the use of poisonous weed killer and to make budget provision for 2020. However, environment enthusiasts will say that among other issues, local shops are still packaging a lot of their goods in plastic and our local recycling facilities need to be upgraded. So my question is, what are your ideas for further initiatives in this area, and specifically, how will you garner the support of the whole team of councillors?
Right. Well, perhaps the council are moving in the right direction now, because when I first brought that motion in 2017, it didn't receive any support. In fact, it was voted down at full council and went off to the Strategic Policy Committee for the Environment. Fortunately, I'm on that committee, and when it came up there, they brought the Department of Agriculture there to debate it with me, who refuted everything that I felt in relation to glyphosates and their usage. And I managed to salvage the motion and have it that KCC would look to use an alternative product on a pilot basis out in Newbridge, and they'd come back to me. So when I put it to them in February this year again, how did you get on out in Newbridge with your new project? They then said, well, actually, we didn't do it at all. But so in the meantime, we were debating the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan. So I said, have a look at your All-Ireland Pollinator Plan. It explicitly says to reduce the use of pesticides. So they were kind of over a barrel at that stage. I mean, the officials and the Parks Department, because we get told all the time the Parks Department is very small, they've no staff, they've no money, so you're putting an extra burden on them. This will be a financial cost. We have to look at the other costs, I said. So we did manage then, I did manage to have a motion passed, as you said, to reduce the use and to make budgetary provision for 2020. But other initiatives that I would have had in the county development plan would be for edible gardening, for example, and that's like public areas where you could have edible gardening, and the council are receptive to that if anybody wants to do that. Tree care policy, not just chopping and pruning and felling your trees, but to have a proper tree caring policy for our county, and that is being developed at the moment. I held a reuse recycle event in 2017. It was poorly attended, which I was disappointed in, because actually if perhaps the municipal as a district took that as a project, it could be a huge event. Newbridge and other places do them and really successfully do them. I have been extensively involved in water leakages in our area as well. I have been tracking down where the leakages are, and we're talking about environmental issues here, and water is certainly one of those to me. And if you have a district metering area leaking, in 2014, it leaked 43.3% of its water in its own district metered area. Wow. And in 2018, it's leaking 86%. And no surprises that we have with major bursts. But my biggie that I would like to work on, and that I really would like other councillors at a municipal district to be involved in, because I have already done the groundwork with the environmental awareness officer for the county, is to have a food challenge project for our area. And I've asked that Selbridge would be the pilot area for that. A food challenge is where we would challenge people to see your food wastage. So food being created, food grown, food being produced needs energy. It's very costly on the environment, and then you have the transport of your food to wherever it goes. And then as households, we actually collectively in Ireland throw out over 300,000 tonnes of food every year. So we're big wasters in food in our own homes. The Environmental Protection Agency surprised me. It really caught me by surprise when we got a presentation and we were told that the average household wastes about €700 a year on food. And we all, you'd look and say, no, not me, I don't do that. But if you even only waste €10 in your household a week on food, be it the few spuds, the bit of something that goes off, it very quickly comes to 500 a year. So I have asked that we would roll out a campaign and do a food challenge, and do it through the schools and the libraries and maybe the Tidy Towns voluntary groups. Get involved, educate people, and let's all try to cut down on our food wastage. And that's an environmental issue to me.
Okay, well, if there are any of the other councillors watching, you heard it here first. If Íde is successful on the 24th of May, we'll expect to see that on the agenda sometime soon.
You save money as well if you don't. You also save your money if you cut down your food wastage.
Well, there you go, to everybody else watching. Okay, we have had a question from Lulu on a dog park or a dog run. Lulu notes that you've got dogs. You mentioned it at the start as well. Maybe that's something that could be looked at. James, forgive me, James, I don't have your surname in front of me. Regarding Article 13, will you give us some more information on that? I know you were looking for answers on it if it's a local issue, Íde can address it, or hopefully Íde will be able to address it in the comments afterwards. But forgive my ignorance, I'm not familiar with Article 13 myself to introduce the question properly.
Or the internet, I'm not entirely
sure. I think it's copyright. Yeah. Give us a bit more on that, James, if you wouldn't mind. So we're sticking with the local issues, and okay, so we've got down the comments that I have. Okay, we have another question on the workings of the council in terms of your connection with Bernard Caldwell, and how it's going to work. I presume it's gone off the screen now because we have another one in. Fergus is in with crime, housing, social infrastructure, etc. So there's lots going on in the comments, which is fantastic. Now I know it's lousy of me to ask you to be brief with this one because it's the biggest question, possibly the most common bugbear in Celbridge and a pain point for everybody, drivers and pedestrians alike. The bridge. For a long time, Celbridge has complained about the painfully slow process in building a second vehicular bridge. We have seen some movement on this in recent times, but many would say that the town feels somewhat hopeless about the process, and I think that's fair. Can you give us a status on the bridge project, the proposed location, and what the likely time frame will be? And how can the council influence this process?
Yeah, and indeed, as I said, I'm 34 years living here, and we've had many bridge proposals in that length of time. I wouldn't like anybody to be negative about a bridge proposal right now either, though, because I do feel that we are coming to a stage where we may actually see one. Just nobody knows where it's going to be right now. In April, we would have had a meeting, our municipal meeting, and we would have discussed the bridge at that. And then after the meeting, the 5 of the councillors met with the senior engineer who's responsible for capital projects for the county, and we asked him, look, tell us what's going to happen with the bridge now, where are we at? He would have thrown out his thoughts on it as senior engineer responsible for capital projects for the county. He gave an outline of a possibility of somewhere in the order of 7 years to completion, and as many as up to 10 or more options to where the bridge might go. And that could be any place, and also that perhaps the main street might have to become pedestrianised and only public transport and no private transport on it. Lots and lots of that sort of talk from him. And that was April. So on foot of that anyways, obviously we see many other comments around about bridges, and it's the big question, how do we alleviate the traffic that we all have to, like the hopper bus, the airport hopper bus won't come in because of the traffic in Celbridge. The 139 wouldn't come through Celbridge because of the traffic. So everybody skirts around it instead of dealing with it. And right now we have a situation where you have an upgrade to an existing bridge, we have a new bridge proposal, we have strategic housing developments, we have it all going on, but we have no traffic and transport management plan for our area, for Celbridge, and no public transport strategy within that as well. So from that point of view, we're dealing with all of those things, and somehow they seem to be all still disconnected, where they are all absolutely should be connected. So I put a question to the director for our area and said to him, well, this information has come to the councillors now in April. I feel that the people at Celbridge are entitled to a definitive statement from Kildare County Council. And it took me from whatever that was, around the 14th of April or something, until yesterday to get in writing from them where it's at. And rather than somebody think I'm making the words up, I'm actually going to read to you just what was emailed to you. It's brief, it's not that big now, but the answer, and it comes from Niall Morrissey, who's the Director of Services, Roads and Transport and Public Safety. So he says, in response to your query, KCC has received funding under the Urban Regeneration and Development Fund, which provides us with the resources to secure a consultant who will be engaged to assist the road section to bring this project through the route selection statutory process. So the required phase 0 port under the public spending code has now been completed, and we are currently preparing to go to tender to secure the consultant. So that's the consultant who's now going to bring us to the route selection process.
Okay.
So using our extensive project management expertise, we estimate that it typically will take us about 24 months approximately to complete the route selection statutory process.
Did you say 24 months? Did I catch that?
24 months, which is 2 years, yeah. That's for your consultation process, 24 months. The timeline takes into account all stages from the preparation of consultant tender document through to securing of the necessary planning approval. So the timeline can't be confirmed then until after the consultant's project plan is delivered. So if or when the planning approval is secured, KCC will then seek funding for the construction of this critical piece of infrastructure. So when that Niall Morrissey was at our meeting yesterday, and I said to I have your email in the last couple of minutes, so tell me how many years are we talking about here then?
Yeah.
On the basis of that. And he said, and I said, and is there a conflict of information being given to councillors? Because if it is, it's not helpful. We shouldn't have to decipher who is telling the truth, or does the truth lie somewhere in between with the two in versions of events. And he said, well, no, engineers see things one way and directors see things another way. So also not that helpful. But I get from that anyway that we will have a consultant appointed who will bring it to the project approval stage when it comes for planning. If it's uncomplicated, if there's no ecological or other matters that are extremely contentious, it could go for a Part 8 to your local councillors in a reasonable time frame. But if it were contentious, then it would go to a Board Pleanála, who would absolutely just make a ruling. I also asked then, where will the bridge go? And the answer is that person, the consultant, will look at a number of options, anything up to 10 options again, maybe only 8, narrow it down to 2, and will then look to implement one for a planning approval for one. Right. Where is it going to be? The answer is still the consultant has to have a look at that and tell us where it is. So, look, to me, I feel it's positive that it's been talked about in those.
Íde there. We'll give it a moment and see if she can come back. There we are. It's okay.
Can you see? Yeah.
I'm fine. Okay. I don't know which of the signals went down, but we're okay. We're back live. Thanks, everyone. So continue.
So please. It's positive that we're having all these conversations. It's positive that there's progress, and it's positive that we will have the consultant to bring it to this stage. So it's a couple of light years away, perhaps.
Okay, but we'll keep pushing.
Okay.
We have another point in here. I'm just coming to some of the comments here. So much of the local success depends on central government. Bernard, I'm paraphrasing now. It's popped off my screen again. But you know, do you need the party machinery behind you in order to push forward and to get that little bit of support? And we had Dana, who came in regarding the 67, I suppose, supporting the point that had been made by Fidelma earlier on as well, that you know, Selbridge is crying out for better public transport, and I know you're keenly aware of that as well. And I'll just scroll through and see, hopefully without disappearing the screen. Here we go. Another person has come in, Aisling Neely. Hi, Aisling. Regarding the train station, and what's the likelihood of getting Birchall's bus runs extended beyond the amount that there already is, so that people can connect up. So those sorts of issues, very much the common issues, the issues that you see online, and I'm not sure whether it's reflected at the doors as well, but certainly these themes are recurring time and time again on online forums. And here they are again. Now, for everybody watching at home, Íde and all of the candidates, in fact, have committed to answering as many questions as they can on local issues after the video is shared. So I hope our topics are pretty much in line, Íde. If you can have a bat, it doesn't have to be straight away. I know it's late at night, but if you can get to as many as you can, that'd be fantastic.
I will. I haven't seen any of the comments yet. I can't see them. I don't know if I should, but I can't see them. But yeah, certainly the questions that you're putting to me there are the common themes are really the Bus Connects project and the Birchall's bus, for example, that kind of thing. They're things that will be worked out hopefully as soon as possible with the next draft of the Bus Connects project. But yeah, crime, drugs. We didn't mention drugs earlier when we talked about crime and stuff. There's a lot of conversation about drug issues in Selbridge, crime, the Gardaí, the resources, the buses, and the transport and the traffic congestion in general. And they are the biggies. Yeah. That's what's happening. So and I'll certainly do my best to get through as many as I can. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks
very much for organising.
It's a pleasure. It was nerve-wracking, I have to say, more so yesterday than today. I was pretty nervous. Today I felt that little bit easier. And also, since you and I
No,
have
you're
been in touch
really,
the
really
odd time,
good. Yeah.
thank you. Well, look, I can see there's so many people online again. I can't believe the audience. It's really huge. When
Good.
the video is shared, people can see it again in replay in their own time, and it might suit them tomorrow or the day after. And I know, Íde, you'll be campaigning hard for the next week. So chances are you'll knock on the door and somebody will be watching you on on their phone when you do it.
I tell you now, we're all out there all the time,
I
and
know.
we bump into other candidates, and we try to shift to another area
Heckle
to give
them.
the other
Heckle
person
them.
the space. So we do even work together during the
Oh,
campaign,
there you
which is
go.
probably. Actually, I met Henry Burrows last night from the Leinster Leader. He was actually with Brendan Young out the street
Are you
earlier last
serious?
night, and he said to me, "I can't believe how courteous some of you people are to each other." Like, I mean, I don't know what people think, but it's really not the way we are at
Ah,
all.
no,
No.
no, no. Sure, I look at I know it. When we were testing with Stephen and Kira on the staging area for this interview, and yeah, there's a little bit of banter going. You know, just playful. It does seem like there's a good bit of camaraderie there. So yeah, I have to say I haven't seen nothing other than friendliness between everybody in our time during the week testing. So listen, I'm going to wrap it up. I'd just like to very briefly say to everybody who's at home, thank you for hitting like. Thank you for tuning in. It means a huge amount that we can ask these questions and bring you the information. And it's a first for Celebrity Politics. I think it's a first in Celebrity. Somebody else said they thought it was a first in the country as well, which is it's pretty cool to be doing something so unusual here. And Íde, thank you for taking the risk. I know it's awkward and it's technical and all those sorts of things, but it's brilliant that you would come on live and address everybody in a digital format like this. So so thanks a million. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate the opportunity as well. Now, thank you very much, Trasa. And like you're a volunteer, you're doing this for Selbridge as well, and well done. And I think you have a great future yourself somewhere on
Thanks.
television or radio.
Gosh,
Well done. I don't know what you work at in your
I'll have
own
to.
life, but fair play to you.
Just, I don't think you'd talk to me if I told you, Íde. I'll wrap it up.
You'd be surprised I can work with anyone.
Fair
All
point.
right. Listen,
I'll
thank
wrap
you
it
very
up.
much.
Everybody, I'm going to share the video just after this. I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll share the video. Please keep the comments coming. Hit like. Let Íde know you're supporting her. Let your candidates this week know you're supporting them, and join us again tomorrow night. And thanks again. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.